Okay, folks, you have to put up with my voice. I decided to work 33 hours in 2 days because I work in the production industry, and so my voice is pretty well shot. I'm going to talk about lighting, okay? So we use these commercial breaks, 10 minutes to just kind of like change topics altogether. So I'm going to talk about lighting, and I'm going to do a scenario just to kind of tell you what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to do a scenario where we say we're walking into a basketball gymnasium, maybe at a high school or something, and we're going to do a concert that night, okay? So I'm going to teach y'all what lights to use, where to put them, and maybe some adjustments to think about on those. I'm going to try to do that in 10 minutes using strange props that I gathered this morning, so stand by. All right, that's a gymnasium, okay? Basketball gymnasium, roughly. So you walk in, you want to decide, am I putting my stage this way or that way, you know? So let's just go this way, okay? Let's go kind of traditional arena style. We're going to go deep. I would call this a deep setup as opposed to a wide setup. So there's our stage. It's roughly in scale there, strangely enough. So there's our stage. So first question I'm going to ask myself as the lighting designer on this show is, can we rig? And the reason I'm going to ask that is the ideal position for lights to be in is a 45-degree angle, okay? It's precise. However you want to remember that. You can remember that Germans are precise and they loved Hitler. So if you look up 45 degrees, that's where you want those lights. Hitler jokes, sorry. I was a history major, sorry. So you want to be 45 degrees up, all right? So if I'm a guy standing on this stage, if I'm a guy here, looks like Larry the Cucumber, and if I look up at the lights, I want them to be kind of like here, right? 45 degrees, and that's from my eye level. That's why I joke about the Hitler thing. It's not from the deck level, okay? It's from my eye level. So 45-degree angle, that's where I want those lights. So if I want to rig, right? Because I can't get a light up here. There's no ceiling in this diagram, but I can't get a light up here unless I hang it from the ceiling. There's no way to I guess I could put like a really tall stand in the middle of the room, but that's going to kind of ruin the show a little bit. So first thing I'm going to find out is, can I rig? We're not going to go into the details of rigging on weight and math, et cetera. We'll save that for another time. But let's just say we can rig. Okay, great. So this aluminum foil is a stick of truss that we use a lot in production. There's a bunch of them sitting over here behind me. So let's say we can build this truss, right? So we're gonna set this thing on some road cases or something, and we're gonna build all of our lights on it. And once we have our lights built on the ground, then we'll use 2 chain motors in this 40-foot instance, and we'll raise it up to trim, okay? Very simple. So let's talk about how many lights I'm gonna want on that. So let's say this is a 48-foot wide stage, just to pick a number, okay? So as a rule of thumb, and this is a pretty dangerous rule. Most rules of thumb are dangerous. You know, it's like 80% of the time they're right, and if you use them 100% of the time, you're probably wrong 20% of the time. So as a rule of thumb, I like to have a light for every 4 feet of deck. That's a very dangerous rule of thumb, because if the deck's deeper or you're further away or something, that's a problem. But if it's a 48-foot deck, I'm going to put a dozen lights on it, okay? And in very simple terms, I don't want all those lights concentrated right in the middle and like fanned out. I just want them straight on, because it looks weird. Like if we lit me, we'd want it to be lit from the front, right? We don't want like a weird angle, because in the human mind that you perceive that as like, this guy's a shady individual. There's some psychological stuff there. So for the most part, you just want it straight on, okay? So we got a 48-foot stage, and I said this is a 40-foot stick of truss, so we're going to put them right at the end, which basically kind of centers them on that last 4-foot section. Then just every 4 feet, all the way along the truss, straight down, and then we're going to raise it up to where it's 45 degrees. Okay. Now, something we have to ask ourselves before we built this truss was, is it back here, or is it right here? Because that changes the 45. If it's right here, it needs to sit like right here. So you understand what I'm saying? So we have the kind of the y-axis and the z-axis. So depending on where I can hang, if I can only hang from back here, we need that truss to be way up high, which I haven't seen gymnasiums built this tall in a while. So our ceiling height typically is going to determine where we place the truss, which is really convenient. These are rules of thumb. So let's say we have 20-foot ceilings in this room. This is a 2-foot deck with a 6-foot person on it. So they're 8 feet off the ground. So there's 12 feet up from eye level to ceiling. So we want to go 12 feet out, right angle, 45 degrees. So we're going 12 feet up from my eyes, so let's go 12 feet out. So when we're building this truss, let's build it 12 feet off the downstage edge. Let's put a dozen lights on it, and let's raise it up to 20 feet. We got a 45-degree angle every time. Questions about that so far? I like to oversimplify things and make dangerous rules of thumb, okay? So every time you walk in, there's the stage, ceiling height, come out that far, build your truss, put as many lights on it as 4 feet of deck applies, raise it up, done, okay? Now let's talk about some other scenarios. Mainly, they won't let you rig, okay? So in a lot of venues in town, in every town, depending on how unionized and other things, there are sometimes rigging gets expensive because some venues won't let you rig, or they'll charge you $2,000 or $3,000 just to hang 2 things off the ceiling, which is outrageous. Or let's say this is a really old gymnasium, like we work in the Record downtown Bentonville. You can't hang a lot of weight from the ceiling of the Record. I worked there in high school. It's a very old building. So you don't want to hang a lot of stuff from there. So if we can't hang stuff, we still need to achieve stage lighting, right? This is going to get real weird in a hurry with this slope angle that I have here. Super sketch. The slope is not to scale.
How do we calculate?
Yeah, you do not want to do a show in this place tonight. You're going to have to compensate for the slope. So let's say we can't do our truss, right? Can't hang. It's not safe to hang. Ceiling can't support it, or the ceiling wants $3,000 and the whole show's $1,000, so we're not hanging, You can do some upright truss, which we do by taking those and those. And now an upright truss, okay, which I didn't have 2 of these, so now it's these things. So, how far out? So let's say we took a 10-foot and a 5-foot, so we went 15 feet up. So we're 15 feet up. How far off the deck do we want that to be? 7 feet. Technically, yes. What starts to happen, because we've split, remember how I talked about how we don't want to put all the lights in the middle and fan them out because it starts to make a weird shadow? The same thing happens here. If we actually put them at the technical appropriate distance, these lights to get to this point are going to be like way off axis, right? I'm going to be like the guy off Batman that has 2 faces. It's Two-Face, thank you very much. I skipped my childhood, went straight to 50, sorry. So you actually don't put them this close in this scenario. You slide them back. And that's just because if this was a flashlight or something, and Daniel, here, I don't need this example. I have it right here in front of me. So if we're here, this is way off axis, but as we do the DeVore here, as we slide this back, we start to become more on axis, okay? Well, we don't want to come all the way around to the back, okay? And here's why. We were straight on earlier, right? So why not be straight on? Okay, it's great. Well, we were straight on when we could be at perfectly 45 degrees. But now that we're only 15 feet tall, we're way low on the degrees, okay? We're like at a 25 or a 30 degree angle. And as we become lower, it's going to start to shine right in the presenter's face, and they're going to get real mad. So we would not go straight on unless we were up here, which we joked about is not a practical place to put it. So as we go back, we also go wide so that, this is getting silly, we go wide so that as the presenter looks out into the room to address the audience, they're not a deer in the headlights, if you will. I don't know why I'm holding this. So we go wide, kind of split the difference. I like to use a 45 degree angle again. So if I'm the presenter, I'm going to go 45 degrees out and then as high up as my truss will allow, if that makes sense. That way the angle of our lights is making a nice like L. I don't have a square, but you understand what I'm saying. It's like 45 here, 45 there, makes a nice 90-degree angle as high as we can. That way if I'm a presenter standing center stage, we have a nice, consistent. We don't have a real hard edge. We don't have a deer in the headlights. We're consistent, okay? The last thing I'll address on this, I'll take questions quickly, is the color of the light matters. So if you take a Lico or an ellipsoidal or a Par or a Parnell, a standard hot light, a theater light that you'd find in a theater, you turn it on, it has kind of a yellow glow to it. You've seen this, right? Most of those really bright stage lights have a yellow glow, okay? That has a color temperature associated with it. Just like this light right here has a color temperature associated with it. This is not as yellow as that, okay? Now, if you come from a video background, you kind of start to understand, or a photography background, you kind of understand this. But in live production, you have to understand a little bit of it, and I'll explain it briefly. A warm glow, something that's warm, probably has a color temperature of around 3,200 Kelvin, okay? 3,200 Kelvin. This light is 4,000 Kelvin. It's confusing because it's a higher number, but it is a cooler temperature. So don't be deceived. If we go outside on a sunny day, it's 5,600 Kelvin. If the clouds start to come around, it's 6,000 Kelvin. And if we're standing in the shade, it's like 7,000 Kelvin. So that's why if we're inside and we have all the lamps on and we're like reading a book in the middle of the day or something, and then we throw the door open and we go outside, not only are we like blinded because it's crazy bright, it's also really blue. It's like really blue for a second, okay? And that's because your lamps inside were extremely warm in color temperature and orange. And, oh, should I use this stand? Oh, what is it? Oh, sorry, I'm holding the antenna. I'm being that guy. Our lamps were warm in color temperature, 2,900 to 3,200 Kelvin, outside 7,000. Okay, well, back to the gymnasium. We want our stage lights to be appropriate for the room. So if the gymnasium was lit by these, if the house lights were these, and we put stage lights on, what's it going to look like? Temperature-wise. So if we have a stage light relative to this, is the stage warmer or cooler? Warmer. And it's going to feel warm. It's going to feel, because the stage light was 2,900 or 3,200 Kelvin. This is 4,000. This is bluer. The stage light's oranger. It's going to look orange. And that would be fine if we kill the house lights. If it's like a rock show and we kill the house lights, fine. But if it's a conference or a business event and we're going to keep them on, the human eye is going to start to get a little irritated, because when you look down at your paper to take notes, it's 4,000 degrees, and then when you look up, they're an Oompa Loompa. And so what you do is you put gel in the lights. And I'll wrap up with this. The gel is blue, because just like when you're mixing watercolors as a kid, if it's too warm, you're going to add blue to cool it off. So we would use what's called a quarter CTB or a half CTB changed to blue CTB. And that raises the color temperature from like 2,900 to 4,000 on a quarter, or up to 5,600 on a half CTB. To make the house lights, they were already 4,000 and we can't control them. Now our stage lights are 4,000 and they look good. If the house lights were off, it may look a little blue up there, but our human eye, when we walk in the room, we're going to adjust to the blueness, and that needs to look just like it. So in 10 minutes, or however long that was, hopefully I didn't go over, that was if we could fly, where would we fly? If we can't fly, how would we deal with it? How to pick how many lights, and that's a very dangerous rule of thumb. And then color temperature. Any questions on the rules of thumb on quick lighting in a gymnasium? Yes, Ellen?
The upright truss scenario, would you still use 12 instruments for 48?
Great question. She said in an upright truss scenario, would you still use 12 instruments for the 48 foot? Yes, I would. I would try to. It's going to start to get really cluttered up there. But yes, I would, because the number of instruments is based on the width, the size of what we're trying to cover. Just like if I need to fill up this case with water, I'm going to need 12 buckets, regardless of whether I pour them from up here or throw them from over here. I still need that much light and that much energy on the.
Each area have 2 lights aimed at it as opposed to 1 for every 4. So you're trying to hit 8 feet per instrument now?
That's a focus question. I'm not going to go into that because that's a lot more deep and a lot more artsy. But you would probably fan them both out evenly. so that when you're on one side of the stage, you don't have a two-face.
You still have it.
How would things change if you were in a smaller, maybe room, or like a smaller venue in general?
Yeah, we do smaller shows downtown Bentonville all the time for city sessions and folks. Same things apply. Let's say, I mean, it's just a smaller room, smaller scale, smaller stage. Can you fly? Yes or no? Can you do upright? Yes or no? If it's a 24-foot stage and you just do, what is that, 6 lights instead of a 48-foot? What's the specificity of your question,
Well, no,
though?
I was just wondering if it's proportional, like you can apply this to any scenario.
I would, and I would say the only thing that would maybe mess with it, if it's a coffee show and it's really dim and intimate, you may not need to pump that much juice of light onto the stage. If it's a show where we're going to keep the house lights on, you may need to pump more light. But the rules, the rules of thumb, I think, are the same.
We're in these situations, we're assuming you have access to all kinds of lights, cars,
Yeah, good question.
because if you're pulling back, you got to get back apart. A car can's not going to do as
Right.
much as.
Great question. So he's asking, this is assuming you have pars or LECOs. So yeah, this scenario, I like pars because they're a lot wider, and the wider it is, the more smooth the coverage is going to be. Instead of a bunch of laser pointers, and you're going to feel it when you walk in between each one, the pars are going to all overlap. So I like pars here. But in the back, yeah, if you turn a par on, I mean, you're lighting all of this. So you want a LECO and you want a tighter lens LECO. So in the back, we may be doing as much as a 19 or a 10 degree lens. Whereas if we did LECOs up here, you could do a LECO, but you'd want to do a 50 degree or a 36 degree lens on it to make it feel more like a par. Great question. Okay, I don't know how much time that was. I feel like I went long, but I will wrap it up with that. That's the basics of stage lighting in a gymnasium in a hurry. Thank you very much.